Hello, my name is Carl Surrey, and this is a video tutorial for the Facebook group called Fans of Serif Software. Now this is a part 2 to one I have just done recently of looking at textures that can be used in PhotoPlus. Now, in the first video I looked at the textures which were JPEGs, which you can use to lay underneath an image and then alter the blending mode of the image so the texture shows through the image. Now this next one is looking at what a serif call overlays. I'm assuming that's a general term for them, and in these cases they are invariably PNG format files and are black and white. If I go to this file page, this is from the serif textures and overlays parts 1 and 2, but you can get, imagine you can get these on the internet just as easily as you can get textures. But basically, as you can see, these are all just black and white and they're all different textures. But because they are PNG format, the white areas on most of these will be actually transparent. So only the black areas will affect your image. And the one I have opened on my one is number 15. Let me just go back to PhotoPlus, and you can see I have number 15 here open, and as you can see, because of the checkered, where it's checkered, it's transparent, and all that is really visible are the black areas. So what I will do is select all, or Control and A, and then edit, copy, or Control and C. Go back to the image I want to add this to, and then go to edit, paste as a new layer. Let me just jot that down. Now, depending on the size of your image and the size of the overlay, you may need to deform especially the overlay to fit your image, and also depending on how much of this effect you want on the screen. I mean, you could increase the size a bit so this effect comes further over the image, or reduce it back if you don't want it to cover something up. Now, I'm not 100% certain why you would use this that often. Same goes for the textures really, but this can be quite good if you want to make a picture look older than it is. So if I just go back to that tool just to get rid of the box, in itself that looks quite horrible, but you can change the blending modes. Now, unlike the textures where almost every different blending mode will have a different effect, with overlays it's not quite as obvious. So if I will just quickly go through the different blending modes, and you can see some will have little effect at all, and there's not a lot of difference between these. It's not even most of these aren't even affecting it, and some it just won't show up at all. So as I go, I think overlay is probably overlay can be quite good, but you have to be careful here, because in overlay the light areas will make these lighter, whereas the dark areas will make it look darker, so it can be a bit disjointed effect. So basically you either get the effect or you don't, unlike with the textures where the differences are quite noticeable between the different versions. So I'll stick it on multiply. But like I said, as it stands at the moment, it doesn't look that great. But we're trying to make it look like an old image that's got a bit of wear and tear. So the best way of doing that is to make the image sepia. So what we can do is come up to the adjustments. You can either do it via the add a new adjustment layer and go to colorize, or you can just select colorize from up here. Now by default the colorize tool will start off within the red hue. You can use a ready-made sepia, which is from this drop down. You've got sepia tone, and the other one is sepia tone layer. We're not certain what the difference is. Oh, it's not as yellow. So as you can see, that is a quick way of aging the image, or you could try and make it your own yourself by just moving the hue slider slightly up towards the more brownish end of the red range, and you can increase its saturation or lower its saturation to just give a hint of the colour. And then the other thing you may want to do is to just knock back this overlay effect. So if I come down to the overlay layer, highlight it, and then change its opacity, drop this down to say 50 or 60%. Yeah, that's not too bad. I mean, I still don't personally like this type of image overlaying, making it trying to look old, but if it's the effect that you are trying to get, this would be the way to go. So then all you'd need to do is merge your layers and then save or export under a new name. So that is a quick look at the overlays that you can use, and I just want to go back slightly over the textures that I did in the first video, and I will be back soon. Okay, just to slightly recap something I said in the first video, is that there are many places on the internet to get free textures, and I would imagine overlays. I've never looked for overlays, but I would imagine they are just as easily available. The serif collection is fairly basic. There's only a few different types of textures or overlays, and to be perfectly honest, they are quite expensive now. When I brought them, I got 1 and 2 together as a joint collection, and it was quite a good price, but now they're like £20 each, I think, which is a bit too much in my opinion, especially when you can get plenty of free textures on the internet. Now there are 3 that I will just point out to you. You could pause this video and just type in any of these ones. I quite like this first one. It's texturex.com, but the other 2 are just as good and gives you quite a variety. And what I want to do now is I will just show you how to get an image from one of these websites, this first one, so you can use it yourself. So I will just quickly open up the web browser, which I have already open at texturex or texturex.com, and as you can see here, there's many free textures, and they are split into different categories. So you can have metal textures or stone or sky or leather, and pretty much these free websites that I mentioned earlier have different categories that you can download from. You've even got Bokeh textures. So the one I'm going to look at is the paper textures. I'll click on that, and then you have all these different types of paper textures. If you put the cursor over it, it should come up and tell you, like, that one's orange paper texture, handmade, press pulp, custom, wallpaper photo. And there are quite a few different types of paper. The one I'm going to click on is this crumpled paper texture silver shine glow stock photo. Just click on that, and it will come to this page. So it shows you what it will look like, and then you can just click on the download button, and then it will open up that image in a full screen, and then you can just right click and then save picture as. Alright, so then it will open up the save options, and then you can select where you want to save it. But I've already done this, so I will go back to PhotoPlus, and as you can see here, I already have that texture saved and then opened in PhotoPlus. So what I want to do now is just get an image to put onto it. So I'll select all, edit, copy, come back to the texture, and then edit, paste as a new layer. As you can see, my image is much smaller than the paper texture behind it. So I will highlight the background, and I will go to the deform tool, and I will just bring this in that side and that side. I mean, obviously I've now had this blank area down the side, but I will use the crop tool later to crop the image down to lose that area. So we just come off of the deform tool. So like before, if you click on the image layer, and we now change the blending modes. I won't necessarily go through all of them like I did in the first video, but I will just select a couple at random. Let's try multiply. Hardlight I used in the last one, if I remember rightly. It's not too bad. And overlay, which I think was the one I'm going to use. Yeah, see, overlay. So now it looks like, more like this image is printed onto crumpled paper, but it does look a bit excessive. I need to tone down the crumpled paper image. So what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to highlight the bottom layer, but I can't change the opacity of that layer. So what I will do is I'm going to right click it, come up to duplicate, click OK. I'm going to hide that layer, and now I can change the opacity of the texture because it's on a layer above. So I'll just tone down this effect so it's not as obvious, so it's just more subtle effect. I will leave that like that. I'll then merge the layers down, and then I will come to the crop tool and crop away the bits I don't want on the side. And as you can now see, that looks like an image that's sort of printed on some crumpled paper. Whether that is a sort of effect that you are after is debatable. I'm not a big fan of textures or overlays, but it's nice to know that you do have those options if you are trying to get that sort of effect. So my advice would be to get your textures and overlays from the internet, as long as you make sure that they are free to use. If I just go back to this internet and go back a couple of times. Because on somewhere here it does tell you about terms of use. All images are found in are offered free to use for any personal or commercial applications. You may not sell or claim ownership, blah blah blah. So a lot of these free websites will give you terms of use that tells you what you can and can't do with the images, and it's always best to check if you are going to be using these, especially commercially, that what you can and can't do with the free images. But for your own personal use, it's pretty much you can do whatever you want with these. So hopefully that will cover everything that we need to cover in this particular subject. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you and goodbye.